Hey guys, Cal Snake here. Welcome to the Cigar Box Puzzle Kit Assembly video. That was a puzzle to say that all in a row. Anyway, let's get to it. So this comes primarily in this kind of box. They stopped making the pretty ones a long time ago. This is one of the ones that we did before in person. And I just wanted to show you some of the mechanics that are inside before we get to it. So we got a round disc, and there's a magnet and a retractant wheel there. Magnet there. See how that wants to kick that up into there? And then we got a little rocket here that works this way like a pendulum. Okay, so we'll get to how all this is assembled. And then hidden down up in here, there's our tabs. And then this is a red herring. This is just to make people wonder what the heck's going on. We like that kind of stuff. So let's get to how to put this together. Now, just since I have the extra parts, this was one of the ones that we also built in person there. And here we got all the parts inside, and we're going to begin putting this one together. They're both the same. One just has a thicker spacer because this lid has depth to it, where this lid is just a single thickness. Okay, so here we go. Let's begin. So here's some of our parts. Here's our thickness spacer. Here's our dial. Here's our rocket. This is part of the red herring, and there's some little pins that go in here to keep it from moving. This is the pivot for the rocket, so when that gets assembled, that basically goes in there like that, okay? And this is the little bracket for the rocket. This just keeps it having a certain amount of movement left or right. Our dials and our magnet. And this is the pivot for the bracket that goes up into the wheel. Okay, so let's begin. All right, so let's just do a little rundown of the parts that we have for this puzzle kit. This is what it takes to do the first and second mechanism inside the cigar puzzle kit that you have. So over here we have the rocket. And this is the rocket top pivot, okay? And this is its lock tab and its pin. This is the spacer that goes underneath the wheel. This is part of the red herring. This is the other part of the red herring. You'll need 2 pins to go with that. This is the magnetic wand, and this is the dial that attaches to the other side of this. And this is the reflective magnet that kicks this back into position. And then we have another lock pin for the dial, and this is the pivot for the lock bar. And the Q-tips are for cleaning up a little bit of squeeze out if you put a little bit too much. You want to be careful not to put too much, but not enough won't give you good adhesion either. So, and the Q-tips, they can be for putting a little bit of glue down inside of this knob without getting it everywhere, or using this big bulky glue bottle. You can often get too much. And then also what comes with this kit is this little thin piece of plastic. And what that's for is so that when you're putting the lid together and you got the knob, you can squeeze really, really tight to make sure you're getting, the proper depth and secureness. And then when it's all dry, you can just slip this out, and you'll be left with just the perfect amount of play so that your dial works beautifully. Okay. Other than that, you'll need one of these little X-Acto knives. Because inside of these boxes on the top, you can see there's this glossy paper, and the parts and glue do not stick to glossy paper. So that's what this will be for, to remove that. All right, so, well, here we go. Step number 1. Okay, so here we are. One of the first things we're going to do is we're going to get this spacer attached. And we're going to use the dial itself and its shaft as a placement jig. So going through the top, this is just going to temporarily be pushed through here so that you can see this placement. And then what you want to do is you want to take this spacer and you want to put it on top. And in maximal strength, you would want to face it like this, because you know, as you're pulling on this dial, once it's on this side, once you're pulling on that, this gives you the most support. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. You can do what you want. So, do you want to hold that in place without moving it and take your little knife and score yourself just a little light line so you can kind of get an idea of where the placement is. Could be left-handed or maybe ambidextrous. There we go. So now I can remove that, and I can remove this here too just for the minute. And it's really, you won't be able to see it on camera, but I've scored myself a line that I can now come back and work at to clear away. I'll skip some of that step and you can rejoin me once I have it cleared away. Alright, so here we are. You can see that I've scraped away the glossy paper. In this case, I wanted to show you a little bit. Now this is getting right down to the wood, and this is down to the paper. In this case, down to the wood is fine. Leaving a little paper is okay too, but you also, you know, this is a little bit unlevel. You got to be really cautious that you don't have one side all to the wood and one side to the paper. So maybe be very careful of that. We're going to re-put our dial in for the top because it works as a locator pin. What's going to happen is, you know, we're going to want to glue this on here, and if you put too much glue, what can happen is it'll want to slide all around in there on you. Okay, so just put a little bit of glue. That's all. That's what I've got going on there. And here's a great use for this Q-tip is use it as an applicator, and make sure you keep it away from where the dial goes through. You don't want to glue your dial into the hole, so make sure you use your Q-tips. And if you want to be extra sure, take the clean end of the Q-tip and just make sure you clean it away from around that hole. Okay, you got lots of Q-tips, you can use them up. So you want to line that on here, line that up with where you had marked. And you don't need a lot of clamp pressure for this sort of thing. Usually just holding it with your fingers for maybe about 30 seconds. I can entertain you while we do this. So I guess some people asked, like, why the cigar box? It's such a, I mean, they're cute, but they're ugly, and yeah, they are. And so when I first learned how to make puzzles, I would use these cigar boxes because they were like, you know, if it doesn't work out, I can throw it away. And so it seemed like a great way to sort of learn, cut my teeth, whatever, pay my dues. And you know, also there's a part of me that has a history with recycling, and recycling wood especially. And so seeing many of these lovely little boxes, because this is real wood, this is Spanish cedar, it's not plywood. It is about 3/16, a little less than 3/16 of an inch thick, but more than an eighth. Anyway, I hate to see them go into landfill, and they used to, and I still have some. The beautiful artwork, like, it's certainly worth keeping. Anyway, here we are. That has probably held long enough that I can pop this dial back out. Okay, now what I want to do is reinsert it from this side. Okay. Now you can see the part that protrudes is right here. So there's, I'm going to take the little knob with the hole in it, and I'm going to take one of these little toothpicks, and I'm just going to try to control how much glue I put on there. Might need a little more than that, but you don't want to do this messily. You don't want to get it onto this surface. You got to get it in there. So all those years as a kid playing that doctor surgeon game thing where you have to, well, there you go. It's all coming back. You get to use it. And one more little application. And it's important that you get it all around. Okay. And then the best glue joints will be made when you get a little on this surface too. Don't 100% rely on it just to rub on and transfer. Alright, so here now we get to use that little plastic jig I was telling you about. I'm going to slide that on here over top, and that's also helps a little bit that if any squeeze out does come out, you're going to get it on there. So we put that on there, kind of turn it around. Now for me, I'm going to make sure, you have only a few seconds to do this, so I'm going to make sure this is pointing at unlock, and then if I want this up and down, you know, in my finished design, then that's what I want to do. But if you want to make it as a personal clue to yourself, what you do is you can make either the red one point to the bottom or the yellow one point to the bottom. There's a little bit of variability and there is no one way. This is one of the great things about this puzzle style because it's so fairly flexible, and you'll see what I mean in coming steps. Alright, so you know, you're going to hold this, you're going to squeeze it, you're going to, right? You're a human clamp, okay? And when you're done, we'll slide this out. And you should be left with just the perfect amount of clay. Alright, ready for the next? Alright, so here we go. This is all in now. Turns, awesome, great. So the next piece we're looking to put in is this guy. This is the lock bar arm. And it's going to attach on this side. And its design is to come up into here and interfere, right? And interestingly, okay, this is our pivot. And now you're going to see two of them in the kit, but one's a little bigger than the other, right? So it's the bigger one you want for here. And if your box is big enough, you can set it up so that it looks like this, okay, with it coming off horizontal. But this is another great example I want to show you where this dial can actually lock over here, and you can put this way, right? Flexibility in designs, I love it. So, but for now, we're going to hold that straight. And the easiest thing to do, okay, is get this lined up for yourself where you want it. And you want to mark where this one is sitting. Before you even play with the magnets, let's just get, you have to get this situated. Because one person only has so many hands. Okay, so I've made my light scoring marks, and now I'm going to go back and clear off this area. Alright, so here we can see now that, you know, I've scraped off the paper. It's really hard to see, and I might have over-ripped, but it'll be underneath everything and you won't see it. Okay, so that's going to go on there. So I'm going to put a little glue on here. Now, with this particular part anyway, there's not a whole lot of risk in you know, putting too much glue that it's going to interfere with parts, as you can see. But still, I just use a bit of a Q-tip to flatten down some of the big hunks of glue that might really want to smear. Okay, so again, setting that into place and just using a bit of downward pressure with your thumb should just hold that down there, no problem. Alright, so the next one you're looking for is this little magnet. And this little magnet is going to want to repel on here. Now, interestingly, can you guys see that okay? What you want to do, see how gravity's going to want to pull it down? Well, this has to be close enough to this that it will keep it up there. Look at that. Now, if you go too tight, well, your other wand still has to be able to pull it out of that notch, you see? So that's too tight. So you have to find a balance where you're definitely up there with gravity, but you're not so high so that your magic wand still has the ability to pull it out. You see that? So this is really critical as to where you put it. Too close, it won't work, and it will take a whole lot more effort. But this is how you test it before you ever find the spot. Too far away, well, even gravity will let it fall out. So I like to find a spot somewhere where it's half up in or just a bit more. And then when you try your, and see that too, if I have it too far right, too far left, it has its own effect. So you got to find exactly the right spot where it will come out and repel. Once you have that, back to the old X-Acto.
This is why it's called a puzzle.
This is why it's called a puzzle. This is the puzzle making the puzzle. Fine tuning. Fine tuning. And don't hurt yourself with this little thing like I did right there. Okay. So there we go. So I'm going to get that cleaned off next, and then we'll glue it on. Alright, so here I have got it peeled off with the knife. And you know, if you have a pair of these little tweezers, you know, it can be really handy. My fingernails can't get in there. Okay, so here we are. Got that. Now we're going to put a little glue on here. And again, this is another great piece that, you know, if you get a little bit of squeeze out, it's not going to hurt anything. Something like that. Level it down a little, just so that there's no big bumps of glue. That helps. Put that down with this magnet facing the other magnet. Oh, I got a little bit of squeeze out, so I'm going to use one of these clean Q-tips just to wipe that up a bit. There we go. And I'm just using a bit of downward pressure. Now, this is again, while you're holding it, this is your opportunity to take your magnetic wand, test it, right? Test it before this really glues on. Wood glue is so forgiving. You've got a couple of minutes before it really starts to set up. So now that I'm convinced, yeah, it feels good. I got my magnetic wand. I'm able to repeatedly pull it out of the channel of the dial. And when I let it go, it comes back up in there real nice. I'm feeling satisfied, okay? And that's how you test that mechanism. Okay, so we're gonna just hold this for a minute longer, and then we will go on to the rocket. All right, now we're on to the rocket. So you're gonna need the rocket, and your rocket only looks like this if you've got the thicker spacer, but I don't think everybody else from here on forward is going to have a smaller, skinnier rocket because you don't have the thick lid. And this is the other pivot point. You're going to want to put that together there. Now what we're looking for, you want to keep this approximately 1/8 of an inch away from this edge here. But really the key thing to figure out is how far up and down this needs to go. And so how we do that, if I can turn this box this way, is you want to find some kind of jig, and this works as great as a jig for right now. And you take your thumb and hold it kind of like a gauge. And I can see that from the outer edge of the box to the edge of the disc, okay, that's how far. So I come over to here, and I want to put that there. Can everybody in the back see? Okay. If anything, it's good to go a little bit extra away than too close. You do have this whole depth of the gap within the notch and within the rocket to work with, so just double check, take your time, you know. So here we go. Looking at that, I think that looks reasonable. And then again, keeping it about 1/8 of an inch away from this edge, because you want this rocket to have enough swing this way or that way. Now, as soon as I move it, it'll change. But let me get it all marked. Again, holding it down. Little mark there. Little mark there. Okay, and when we come back, I'll have that all cleaned out. Okay, so here we are. We've got our little paper scraped away, and I've got our rocket pre-assembly all ready to go. So I'm going to put just a little bit of, well, first I'm going to take that glue off of there. Okay. So putting a little on. Again, you don't want to put too much, but not too little either. Should be wet. Alright, right now that's too much. It'll squeeze out everywhere. But by spreading it around a little, and the Q-tip will soak up some. Look at that. You can get about just the right amount on there. Can you see that? Yeah. So here we go. Placing it into position. Now, due to the nature of this part, there's great leverage on here, even just with gravity. So you're going to want to hold this for a little while. Make sure that sets up before you really move on to the next stage, which is going to be holding on this. I call it the rocket stage. It's an imaginary thing where little tiny itty bitty astronauts, I guess, would walk onto that and then jump into the space shuttle there, I guess. And mostly what it does is it's really designed to give it strength from leverage this way, and it also controls how far it pivots left and right. So once this dries and we're ready to move on to that stage, I will show you all how to set up for that step. Okie dokie, so here we are. We are working on this rocket. And basically it's like a pendulum, right? So any bit of movement, it's always going to be off course. There's going to be a pin on the underside that keeps that locked. But for now, what we got to do is figure out where this goes. Now, you can see that this middle cross piece is a little lower than halfway. And what we're looking to do is we want to keep it, you don't want it touching the rocket, you want it up from, and just a little bit, and roughly centered from where it hangs as a horizontal position. Okay, and so once you hold that, mark it, take off the paper, time to glue it in. So come back and join me in just a minute and I'll have that part done. You don't need to hear the cursing in the swearing parts. Okay, so we can see here now that we got some spots clear to paper. This side just naturally had less paper, so it just came right off. So here we go, we're going to put a little glue on the backs of here. You can sing along, or you can sing a song while you do this, or maybe listening to music's better. There we go, just going to spread that glue along. Making sure that the tallest part of the sections go upwards, so that will impact how far your rocket will swing left to right. Okay, so when you're happy with it, just going to have to firmly hold that down until you feel it's a good time to let go. I'll see you tomorrow after breakfast and we'll finish this up. Okay, so while we are waiting for this, it needs some time to set. Okay, while we're waiting for that, we have a couple of pieces here, 3 pieces that need some little pins. So let's go ahead. This is part of the red herring, and these are the 2 lid tabs. Okay, so if you have a little pair of pliers, that can be really handy. So you want to just grab that. You don't need glue in here, these things fit tight enough. And just hammer them in until they're done. All right, pretty straightforward. Take the other one. Okay. If you have a little sandpaper, you can soften that, but it's not critical. This is a cigar box. You know, and you know, it's nice to see the pretty colors. But ultimately, you can make this out of anything. Okay, and one more. You don't even need the pins if you got strong fingers. Well, not that one. Now you'll notice that the hole was drilled through these, but one side of these is left flat, and the other sides, you can barely feel it, but they've all gotten a little chamfer to make them a little softer. Okay, so here we go. We have our pieces. We're going to assemble these last. This is just the red herring. It ultimately can go anywhere in the box, but all right, so here we go. We're going to release the gear, that dial, and you can take your little sharp thing, or you can use a pencil, whatever, and we're just looking to see where is center to this, because then what you want to do is you want to close it up and you want to mark it on the inside of the lid. Now this kit is designed so that this should be flush with the top surface of the box. Okay, now it's very forgiving, the glue, so we're going to hold it in place with our fingers just for a moment. Okay, and we're gonna test it, and the way you test that is by closing the lid and turning the dial. If you once you have it locked, if you can lift the lid and you can see in there a whole lot, maybe it's too loose. And what you want to do is just come back and before the glue sets and slide it down just a little bit. So there we go. I've been holding that for just a few seconds, right? It's not really set, but it's flush. So I'm going to close this up and I'm going to turn it just enough to lock it. Oh, see how much gap I have? Oh, I don't want that much. So I'm going to turn it back to open without having it fall off. And I'm just going to push it down just a little bit. Just a little bit. Now that I think maybe that's where I want it. Okay. If you've got a couple of little clamps like these, they can be quite helpful. Okay. There. Now, we're putting the clamps on it now because we want permanent adhesion. I got really lucky with this box and there was no paper on the inside to clear off, so that was nice. Anyway, we're going to give that a minute or two and then we're going to recheck it. It's a lot harder to get off once you really give it that clamp time. But like I said, that's why we tested. Make sure, there is going to be a little gap, but not a lot. You don't want so much that you can see through, because if you had it too tight, it would scrape on the inside of that dial, and you would then hear where that little gap is when it unlocks, and we don't want that either. Okay, so when we come back, we're going to test it, and then we're going to move on to the one of the lid lock pins for the rocket. Okay, let's take these clamps off. So here we get test. You always want to test it 100 times. Look at that. Lock it a little. Oh, look at that. See? That's not really billy enough to peek into, so I'm happy with that. Open it back up. Close it again. Yep. Awesome. Now, again, this is a good point to double check that everything is working with your system. That when you take your magnetic wand, you put it under here, yep, it pulls it out, it pulls it out repeatedly. I can pull it out of there. So I feel safe locking the lid, okay? We'll even test that. Oh, okay, so there it is, it's locked, it won't open. And you use the magnet, that pretty much self-locates. Turn it, there you go.
Voila!
So far, first step, so good. Now, Now that we know that works, we're going to leave this in the open position, okay? And now we have to figure out where this goes. So, same thing as we did with the notch. You're going to want to hold it so that it hangs vertical. And at the center of where this notch lands, we're going to make a little mark, okay? And then when I close it, right, I can see that this is center now, okay? Now, same process as before. We're going to put some glue on this, and we're going to hold it in position. We're not going to relock this side because we're testing just for the rocket now. Spread that glue a little. Okay. I could assume that this pin needs to go down just as far as the other one, but I really prefer to test my way there, right? I want to test. So I'm just holding that for, just like 30 seconds. And then we're going to do the little test. Okay. So again, this lid only works when it's upside down like this, right? So as soon as you do that, see, you can see that it closed up. You tilt it. Oh, how much does it lift? Oh, look at that. That's just a nice amount. Nailed it. Okay, so I'm happy with where that landed. I can put the clamps on here now and let that permanently set up. We're almost there. So now the only one left is the red herring. Now, why the red herring? Well, puzzles and red herrings seem to go hand in hand. And what's going to happen here is this is going to be mounted on inside, and you're going to be able to feel that there's something here. And it'll take you so far left, it'll take you so far right, but it never does anything. But it does. It also makes a lot of noise when you're tilting the box, which disguises the noises being made by the rocket. Because there's no magnets in the rocket, the wand never picks up the rocket. And because all you hear is this, and there's a magnet, people who are trying to solve it keep going back to that middle part. And so that's the point of this red herring. It's a bit of a distractor as well. So we're just going to put, again, we want to put a little glue, but we want to keep it well away, and you want to put it in with the rod in it. You won't get it in there later. That's for sure. So the magnet faces out. Okay. Just a little bit of glue there. Okay, and for good measure, because this box is good and deep, I'm going to put a little bit down here on the bottom. Okay. Spread that just a little. Okay. And then down here, somewhere in the middle. I think the middle works good because it really feels like it might be aligned with something going on with the dial. So placement of red herrings, I guess, can be everything. So there we go. That's going to set in place. That's going to dry. And when we come back, we will have a completed puzzle box. All right, here we go. All the parts are glued in. Fantastic. And the nice thing is this is a nice home location as well for the button. Right? So here we are. Take a bit of a sneak peek of what's going on in there. Pretty simple, straightforward. You can see how the magnet wants to slide that part back and forth. Feels like something's going on. And then up on the inside of the lid, that's what we got going on in there. Anyway, I wanted to thank everybody for taking the time to wanting to build this fun cigar box puzzle. This is part 2 mechanisms of a 4 mechanism plan. So next year and the year after will come out the new additions to your puzzle box, that if you've already started this journey, you will be able to carry it on with 2 more mechanisms. Anyway, so thanks for everybody's time, and if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out and contact me, and I will see what I can do to help you. Thanks so much. Create a beautiful day.